Now let's try that. Hey, that works better. You would think after a certain amount of weeks that I would know you have to turn it on in order for it to pick you up. All right, if you want to be turning in your Bibles to Song of Solomon, we are going to hit a few things in chapter 2 before we move on to chapter 3. And chapter 3 is pretty simple, so Lord willing, we'll get all the way through chapter 3 this evening. And then things start picking up in chapter 4, and especially by the time you get to the end of chapter 4, it really starts picking up because we're going to see that the two of them are married. And so the dynamic, the language, everything changes dramatically. The subject matter changes, all of that when you get to the point of the two of them being married together. So let's begin with a prayer. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for its blessings. We thank you so much that we've had a chance to come into your presence, not only this morning, but then again this evening, that you have granted us life to this point that allows us to gather this way. We're so thankful for that. We pray that everything we say, everything we do here tonight would in fact be to bring glory to you. We know that as we get a better picture and a better understanding of you, that we certainly will be able to have the kind of joy and contentment in this life that you would hope for us to have. We pray that you would accept our thanks, that you'd bless us as we study from this book. May we learn good things about relationships. Even though it's poetic and difficult, we pray that we might be able to see the lessons that are contained within it. Please accept our thanks for today and for all the blessings that come through Jesus, and it's through him we pray. Amen. Excuse me. All right. As I said, picking up just a little bit, we made the point that last time, this statement that is made in verse 7 that is repeated several times in the book, this idea of not to stir up or awaken love until it pleases. And it's a little interesting from the standpoint of that doesn't read the same in all the versions, and not exactly sure why the translators would have made an alteration in that, but I think the King James and I think the New American Standard both address that by adding my in there, and so it's don't stir up my love or awaken my love as if it is talking about the person itself, or don't know that really helps with the context at all. I think the idea still is that there is a warning in there in verse 7. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the does of the field, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. And there's a couple ideas that are associated with that. Obviously, one of them is, as we have already mentioned, there's a side of that would say, you just don't want to stir passion until somebody's married. You want to keep everything pure and above board. And I think that there's an aspect of that in there for sure. But there's also an idea of not stirring it in the sense of don't try to hurry it along at all. The idea of passion. If people are growing in a relationship together, it's just some take the position that it's advising, let it happen. Let it happen. Don't force it, because the more you force the relationship early on, in any physical sense at all, just takes you to that next step that makes it harder to go backwards, passion-wise, and things of that nature. Does that make sense at all? In other words, I can still remember, and I use this as an example, because I can still remember in junior high school, first time I was roller skating, at a skating rink with a bunch of other kids and stuff. They had a couples skate. And I thought, hey, I'm pretty calm here. And so I just asked a girl that I knew to skate, wasn't even a girlfriend or anything, but we were skating along with a bunch of other boys and girls, but held hands during that couples skate. I could barely hold on. I started sweating so bad. It's like, this is unbelievable what this is doing to me, so, but there comes a time when you're dating, hold hands, and there may be an excitement level to start with, but there's not going to be an excitement level for long. And so people go to the next step. We talked about that in the high school class when we talked about the whole idea of what stirs passion. And so each time you progress along that road, then that becomes less thrilling in and of itself. And so people have a tendency to kind of push the envelope of that. And it becomes more and more contact until the point that it is certainly would fall into the class of immorality, whether there's fornication or just those things that lead up to that. So there may be a part of that in there as well. Don't stir it. Let it move at a slow pace. There's no need to rush that at all. But probably the bulk of it, I think, deals with just, you know what, don't get those passions stirred so that you don't know what to do and you find yourself involved in a way that you shouldn't be involved. So as we move on from there, you've got this invitation to marriage. Let's read verses 8 to 17, then come back and see the picture that you get here in verses 8 and 9. It says, "The voice of my beloved, behold, he comes, leaping over the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Behold, there he stands behind our wall, gazing through the windows, looking through the lattice. My beloved speaks and says to me, Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away, for behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth. The time for singing has come. The voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree ripens its figs, and the vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away. Oh, my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the crannies of the cliff, let me see your face. Let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet, and your face is lovely." And then you've got this next section, which not in all, but in some of them, is attributed to the group, not either one of the individuals. But still, you have, no matter who says it, catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that spoil the vineyards. For our vineyards are in blossom. My beloved is mine, and I am his. He grazes among the lilies until the day breathes and the shadows flee. Turn, my beloved, be like a gazelle or a young stag on cleft mountains. So, give me the picture that you get first. They together at this moment or not together? They're not together. And so you've got some pretty strong poetic verbiage about the desire to be together, do you not? As you see this real longing to want to be together. And so if you just start with that for a second, tell me what you would learn from that before we ask the question about verses 8 and 9 in particular. What would you learn from that? As you're watching this couple and this romantic poem and this song that is being sung, and you've got this idea of these things that are being said in this section, how does that help you at all? Yeah, Dave? They are having an internal struggle. We'll see that in a moment, I think, for sure, based on some things that are said. So something is happening where there's a little bit of a struggle here. Yeah, Ramon?
I would say that they desperately want to be and spend time with one another.
I think absolutely. I think they desperately want to be together. They want to spend time together. They are truly longing for one another and want to be together, even though they've just had this caution that says, don't go the wrong direction with that. They want to have this relationship. They very much want to be together. So they're separated, but longing very much for each other. How do you see, when you read verses 8 and 9, what do you think? Yeah, Ken?
I think they're young people because that's way too entertaining.
There you go. I'm saying you look at that, and so you're getting this vision, which is what? We use this description in some of the marriage classes we've done, talking about men and women viewing marriage and beforehand. And talk about the women that have this concept that has been put on us by movies and storybook endings and all that kind of stuff that we see, the happily ever after. And we describe it as you're waiting for your knight in shining armor. You ever heard anybody refer to a spouse that way or a mate that the knight in shining armor, and he's going to come galloping down on his steed, and he's going to bend over and swoop you up with his arm and put you on the back with him. I'm saying we get these visions that aren't wholly accurate to begin with, but we get these visions that are very majestic and very energetic, as Ken says. So what else do you see with that? What is it she's saying?
Well, it seems like she's obviously noticing, it's like he said, his athletic prowess. She's making these comparisons, to a gazelle and things like that. but it's almost like she has an expectation of this is what he will be able to deliver. She's impressed by that, it seems like to me.
Yeah, I think very much so. She's looking at him and seeing the things that about him that impress her. I mean, I see her, even, how many times have you seen a movie scene, from especially some of the old movie scenes, where you've got the two people running toward each other, and they put it in slow motion, the man, and then they're running toward each other, and eventually they're going to meet, in the middle of the beautiful field and all that goes with that. But you get a picture of this real excitement level. And she says, look, he's jumping over the mountains. He's just leaping. He's running, bounding over the hills. He's like a gazelle as I see him running toward me. I think you see just a lot of understanding of this incredible desire. And so what do you learn from that for yourself? Anything? How important is it to pursue our spouse that way, before and after marriage? Yeah.
I think it's hugely important. I think that too many times, especially the way society is running right now, it's kind of move on to the next person, or it's not really a thought, or we're having trouble with even communicating or being with one another. And here you have this deep desire just to be in each other's presence, and I think that not only translates to before marriage, but after marriage. I mean, this is the person you want to be with all the time.
I think absolutely, and we'll see that even after marriage when we get farther into the book. But I think you're exactly right, that there's, in Genesis 2, where the principles for marriage are laid down, several principles are laid down. And it talks about, and a man shall leave his father and mother. You've got a separation principle, a priority principle, if you will. The spouse becomes the focal point outside of God himself. The spouse becomes the focal point. So you've got, shall leave father and mother, and shall what? Cling or hold fast to his wife. That idea there in the original carries the idea of pursuit. In other words, it's like the way that God wants to cling to us and in pursuit of us or in pursuit of something. We understand pursuit before we get married, do we not? I mean, we typically are in a pursuit or a chase mode, if you will, as we think about, in our culture especially, as we think about the dating and such that goes with it, and putting on your best face, and anything you can do to impress the other person and show them how much you care. I think he will have us understand this later in here. You need to take that lesson with you. I would tell you that husbands and wives that aren't in pursuit of each other after they get married are guaranteed, I would tell you, to have some kind of struggles because distance starts to happen. If you're not running toward each other, there's a tendency to automatically drift apart. And so I think he's going to help us to understand that. Yeah, Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think there's the first part is obvious that she has noticed him, so she's paying attention. But the second part, looking behind the wall and the lattice and things like that, she has noticed that he is looking at her. In other words, it's a two-way thing. She's noticed him, but she's also noticed, he's interested. He's looking at me too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so you get him gazing and him saying, "Let me see your face." I mean, you get this whole response. She's talking about the things that she's saying and the things that she would be hearing from him, or notices him looking, as you get all of that. And then all of a sudden, right in the middle of that discussion, you get that point that says, one more thing. So in his call for her, do you notice? When she's talking about, here's what he says, "My beloved speaks and says to me." What do you think about the words that he speaks? The manner of the words. "Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away. For behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone, the flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land." He continues and talks about the fruits ripening and all that goes with that. What do you think of that speech? What's that?
I think it's the right time.
Yeah, I think he is absolutely saying, so this seems like a proposal, does it not? I'm saying it is the right time. We've reached that point because they're going to get married in the next chapter. And it seems that that's what's happening. He's reaching out to her. There is a proposal here. But look how he does that, how softly, how beautifully, we might think in terms of, if you're watching a Hallmark movie, that kind of thing makes you sick. But, you're seeing all this lovely language, and he's just making a very soft appeal. He's not forceful about any of this. He's just making an appeal to her and is very, very calm about that. But then you get that next section where it says the whole idea of catch the foxes for us. And so there's a problem when you think about that. You've got no force or demand, but verse 15, all of a sudden, he says, catch the foxes. What is that all about? Catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that spoil the vineyards, for our vineyards are in blossom. How do foxes, first off, spoil the vineyards? What's that? They eat the grapes, the little ones especially, don't they? And when everything's in bloom, the foxes are in eating, and all of a sudden, so now you don't get anything. You ever had a plant planted that something got to it before it could actually produce the fruit you wanted? And if you could have just stopped it before it got out of hand, we had tomato worms one time in Kansas City because we were gone for a couple of weeks, came back, the tomato plants had no leaves on them. Well, they don't produce tomatoes very well with no leaves. They need some way to collect that sunshine and everything. So those worms had ruined those tomatoes. But saying that's what the foxes are doing. So what does that mean? What do you think he's meaning or she's meaning here? Catch the foxes. Let me go David and then to Virginia. A distraction can certainly be there because I'm going to come back to that part of the question in a second. That's the part that I want to hit. Virginia? Yeah. And so there's something there, and somebody's just saying, look, nip this in the bud, if you want to put that in Barney Fife language, nip it in the bud. But as you think about it, just look, we've got these little things. They're not huge problems. There are huge problems that can destroy a marriage, are there not, in a relationship? What kind of huge problems can destroy a relationship? What's that? There you go. There's the first one probably jump in our mind, would it not? There's a huge problem can destroy. That does not fall into the classification of little foxes, infidelity. That's not a little fox. That is a major offense and destroyer of marriages. Doesn't mean it destroys every single marriage, but it means it can. But that's not a little fox that anybody would say, you know what, we got a little problem here. So what are the little problems? Because there are other things that would fall into that category as well that you would say were difficult. I mean, certainly, I don't know if somebody deals with unbridled rage, that kind of thing, abusiveness, those aren't little foxes. Those are major issues. They'll still destroy a marriage, but they're not little foxes. Somebody's dealing with some kind of major addiction kind of problem. Those aren't little foxes. Those are much larger problems. So what are the little foxes for us? Not that we don't know what it was for them. So what are the little foxes that we may have to deal with in marriage?
Say money or in-laws or not you, Patrick.
Yeah, I'm not sure I put in-laws in the little fox category either, but no, it's.
But
Oh, absolutely.
Some families are really difficult for.
Yeah, the whole separation issue of Genesis 2 it can be a major problem. Anybody that has ever watched Everybody Loves Raymond understands exactly the point of lack of separation and what that causes to a marriage. And that's all, obviously that's a sitcom, it's done intentionally, but that's way more real than you might think. Not getting that separation. Other things, I saw some other hands. Yeah, Dave?
Other friends that are possibly causing problems with your other significant other?
You're saying other friends?
Well, like if she's got friends that could be pursuing him, or he's got friends that are pursuing her.
All right, so obviously if you've got somebody else in pursuit of your spouse, obviously that's also, I may put that in the major category, just because of the difficulty of it. What are little things that couples deal with? Yeah, Larry?
I'm going to say anything that steals time.
Yeah, okay, so there we go. What if I've got a hobby that just takes all of my time, and so I don't get to spend time with my wife the way that I should? I've mentioned it before. I mean, I used to play a lot of ball. And I operated under the misconception for quite a while that Judy coming to watch me play softball was good quality time together. So it really wasn't. I found that out later, but it really wasn't good quality time. But it was something I had done, and it still mattered to me in that sense. It shouldn't have, but it did. And so I'm doing something, but it was taking time away from the us in the picture. Who else got something? Yeah, absolutely. You'd be surprised how many of the couples I deal with that's one of the issues we deal with regularly, is what do we do with the chores at the house? And especially in couples, if you have both of them who are maintaining some kind of work outside the home, then that becomes even more of a challenge. Who had one? Oh, okay. Yeah, Virginia and then Cindy.
If you're married to someone that's very neat, and the other person is kind of a slob, it can really cause problems.
Okay, well, let's don't name any names. And so really, just differences of the way we function, the way we come into a marriage, what we expect, what we're used to, what kind of life we have. It was funny because we wondered about that because we have, at least when they were in college, we had a son that was a slob extraordinaire. And so you're thinking, what's he going to do when he gets married? Because I tried to tell him, women don't live with microorganisms nearly as well as men do. So you do have to occasionally clean a bathroom, that kind of thing. But those cause little arguments. Anybody read the Screwtape Letters? Very interesting, because part of the ploy in the Screwtape Letters was when he would get a married couple to just fight over the littlest things. An annoying habit that can be a problem. Stir your coffee so that the spoon tinks the side of the cup every time you're stirring. And just stir. And that's what it's like. Get him to do that. That's going to drive her nuts. Or get her to do this. It's going to drive him nuts. Little things. I think in terms of, in the sense of poor communication, we're just not talking the way that we should, not prioritizing the relationship. We're going to see that an issue in here is going to be the whole intimacy side, neglecting intimacy. One of the things I tell couples that I meet with all the time, intimacy in marriage is a microcosm of the marriage. You can just count on that. That doesn't mean that everybody has the same expectancy or the same demands on them, but if they're not able to share intimacy, which is a lot more than just the sexual relationship, please understand. But I'm saying if they don't share intimacy, they're going to find very difficult to really grow close. There has to be that vulnerability that exists based on they were both naked and not ashamed. They truly are becoming one another and part of one another. So there's so many little things that get in there. Inability to deal with conflict. We have different means of resolving conflict. There's just all these little things. So how do you resolve those? How do you catch the little foxes so you can eliminate them? A lot of work. I just appreciate you not looking directly at her when you said that, Ben.
First thing is finding them, identifying
There you go. And so how you going to find them? There you go. Ask her. I'm saying, I've mentioned before that quote by Gary and Betsy Rakucci that I always loved when it says, one of the best wedding gifts God gave you was a full-length mirror called your spouse saying, here's to what you're truly like. I thought that's a great quote because I've learned some things about Mark since I've been married that I needed to learn. But that's helpful. So I start to see those little things that are problematic because somebody's there to help me see those in the proper way. And so, asking, sharing with one another, trying to find those things that are problematic. And the only way you're going to do that, good, true communication in the marriage. So I think that's what you've got going on in this chapter. They're trying to get together. There are some struggles, some kind of little struggles, but they're saying, let's eliminate whatever causes a problem. Let's get rid of those. Catch them right now. Get rid of them, which is also the easiest time to catch them and get rid of them. If you wait and you let it nag at you for years and then you're going to try and solve it, you're going to find very difficult to solve compared to if we just take care of this when this happens. Yeah, Tom?
It's not a little fox, it's probably a bigger one, but what's supposed to be an incredible blessing of having children, you read in the Bible, there are issues where suddenly your favoritism, you get that with Jacob and others, and then before you know it, a husband or a wife is paying more attention to the children than to the spouse, and before you know it, there's drifting.
Oh, yeah, no question about that. Children automatically create tension in a marriage. Not badly always. I'm just saying tension. That just means there's a pull. Because all of a sudden, where all my time could have been devoted here before, it can't. It's got to be devoted here. Where all her time could be devoted here before, it can't. It's got to be devoted here as well. And that can present problems. And if you don't work on that, you don't talk about that, you don't discuss how you're going to deal with that, then it becomes problematic in all of that. So we've got a whole lesson where children are budget busters, is what we say. They're budget busters financially, they're budget busters emotionally, they're budget busters time-wise. They will destroy allotments in any of those areas if you let them. And I'm not saying because they're bad, I'm just saying because they are there. All right, we've talked about that before. You're married, you have how many relationships in the household? 77. Well, only if you're Solomon, but just married, no children, how many relationships in the household? Well, you do. So you're going to have two relationships, yours to her, hers to you, right? So that means if you have one child, you have how many? 6. If you have 2 children, you have how many? 12. If you have 3 children, you have how many? 20. 20 relationships going on in the same household. When you've got each child to each child and reverse, each child to each parent and reverse, each parent to each parent and reverse. You've got 20 different relationships. You think that's not going to test you? And so there are little foxes. I think that for me anyway, it just helps me. He says, catch the little foxes. Catch them now. Do away with them. Plan for them. Understand what you're going to do so that they don't become a problem for you. So, and then ends this chapter with, my beloved is mine and I am his. He grazes among the lilies until the day he breathes and the shadows flee. Turn, my beloved, be like a gazelle or a young stag on a cleft mountain. This just seems to be a conclusion that says we belong together. There is security in this relationship, and that is what they're looking for. My beloved is mine, and I am his. This is, in fact, what's intended to be. Yeah, Ramon?
I was wondering if you think that verse 15, I'm sorry to backtrack.
No, that's all right.
But in verse 15, catching those little foxes, identifying those issues, and then understanding, is this really the person for me, and are we going to be able to overcome these little foxes before we get married, so that we don't start to try and change a person after you get married.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And you're not going to change all the little foxes even if you find them before you get married, because a lot of that is a lifetime of living together and learning and working together and that kind of thing. But certain things should throw up red flags. You need to be looking for foxes before. I can tell you, I dealt with a couple that I counseled after they got married. I did their marriage ceremony for them. I counseled with them after they got married. I don't remember how long they'd been married, a year, something like that. And I was meeting with them, and they were just having knockdown, drag-out type fights, not physically, but I'm saying verbally and emotionally. So they're having these knockdown, drag-out fights, and which always amazed me anyway. If you're in the first year, the honeymoon period, and you can't stand each other, something has gone majorly awry, I think. But they were having those fights. So I sat down and I'm talking to them, and the first thing that the young lady said to me was, she goes, "This really doesn't surprise us because we fought like cats and dogs before we ever got married." And I'm saying, that's not a little fox. That should have been a giant red flag that went up. Somebody said, is this the right decision or not the right decision? You don't help yourself by complicating it, by piling on bad decisions. So catch those foxes, and I think, we do need to be aware. I know when we meet, and I'm just take a quick aside on this so we can get to chapter 3 and finish it up, but the idea of, especially young women, trying to get young women to understand, if you find a man who's a project, let somebody else fix him. Because it doesn't work the way you think it does. Women think, I'm going to make him better, I'm going to correct him. And so we tell young women, you're dating a guy and he's got major anger issues, you better rethink that. Because if you think that's going to be better just because you marry him, if you're dating a guy and he's got major immorality problems, you better rethink that. If he's got dishonesty problems, if he's got no work ethic, you need to rethink some of those things, because those don't get better just because you get married. So there are That's not really what he's talking about specifically here, but I would just tell you, we need to make sure that our young people understand. I know you think you're head over and heels in love with this person. You better be thinking about where's your life going to be in 30 years. That makes a big difference. Make choices understanding where it is that I'm heading with that. All right, so you get into chapter 3. On my bed by night, I sought him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but found him not. I will rise and go about the city and the streets and in the squares, and I will seek him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but I found him not. The watchmen found me as they went about the city. Have you seen him whom my soul loves? Scarcely had I passed them when I found him whom my soul loves. What do you think she feels about him, first off? I think she loves him. Whom my soul loves. We've got that quote in the bedroom, on one of those wooden plaques. It's one of those verses that just goes well with that. But I held him and would not let him go until I had brought him to my mother's house and into the chamber of her who conceived me. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or does of the field, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. All right, so what's happening here when chapter 3 starts? She does, but does she actually? I'm saying this is kind of interesting what I think this plays out like. Where is she when this starts? She's in bed, it says, right? I am on my bed by night, I sought him. Wait, how did she seek him on her bed by night? I think she's in a dream sequence. I think that's what she's talking about. I think she's referring to, she's having a dream. She really wants to be with him. But I think apparently because of these little foxes, something that's creating this little bit of a disturbance, she's having a dream and she wants to be with him, but she can't find him. He's gone somewhere else. And so she's searching through the streets. I don't get a vision that she's really up in the middle of the night, going through the streets, looking for her and asking the watchman, have you truly seen him? I think the whole thing is a picture of this dream sequence. She's running through the streets at nighttime. Seems, at least to me, to be a dream as being the most logical understanding of that. But regardless, she can't find him at first. And so that's disturbing to her. She's worried about something. Something's concerning in the romance. Something has come up. Something seems to be there. And so they're separated this little bit. Any advantage to that at all? We have sayings that go along with that, do we not? Go ahead, Nancy. I think absolutely. And so what do we say? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. They had a little struggle. Have you ever been that way? Have you ever had just even a little bit of a tiff and you realize, I don't want this to last. I want to get back together. I'm not comfortable with this. I don't want this to last. It seems you got this little bit of separation. It's like, I don't like this. I don't like this. I want to get back together again. And so she's hunting, and so much so that, you know what? He apparently has already proposed, because that's where they're going next. The wedding parade is next. So he's probably already proposed. That may be some of what they're dealing with. She may have not accepted the proposal when he put it forth. I don't know. But she feels that separation. Now she wants to grab a hold of him. She says, I'm not letting him go. I'm taking him home. I want him to meet the parents. I want him to understand that this is a permanent thing that I'm striving for. So it just seems like that's what she's dealing with in this dream sequence as she's going through. She recognizes, to me, the point of all of that sequence is that she truly recognizes he is the one that she wants, and she's going to pursue that and make sure that he knows that. And so she's taking him home, like we say. She's indicating her desire for him to become a part of the family. I want you to meet my mom. Isn't that the whole purpose of that? Why do you take somebody home to meet mom and dad? I mean, you want family to approve them. You want family to know them and meet them as well, do you not? So we take them home, they meet mom and dad, and we want to have that relationship. Well, I want you to know that, we want you to be a part of this family as well. She never wants to let him go. I think that's such a powerful thing that she says there in verse 4. I held him. So I'm saying still, even in a dream sequence, but I found him, wasn't going to let go of him at all. But then, what is the immediate thing she says after that again? There comes the warning again, isn't it? I'm madly in love with this guy. I want to be with him so badly, but be careful. Don't stir that passion before it's time. You can want to be with somebody, you can want to be married to them, you can want that, but we do things that create more and more of a problem, do we not? When that happens. You know, when couples come to me and we're talking and they're talking about, getting engaged. I've asked couples, it's like they say, you know, I'm proposing, we're engaged. So when are you going to get married? And they say, well, we're going to wait a couple years because we've got this to do. And that, I'm thinking, I couldn't, in my opinion, tell you a worse decision you could make than say I'm going to be engaged for 2 years. So now I've acknowledged that I want to be with this person permanently, and I'm going to put myself probably in all kinds of situations that might even allow that to go farther than it should. And I've already committed in my mind that they're going to be my spouse. Do you see the danger in that? And so it seems to be that she's saying, absolutely want him, please. Pray that this not get out of hand. Pray that we keep our purity, we maintain what we're supposed to do. And then in verse 6, what is that coming up from the wilderness, like columns of smoke, perfumed with myrrh and frankincense, with all the fragrant powders of a merchant? Behold, it is the litter of Solomon. That's the way the ESV reads. That's a little strange, isn't it? The litter? Yeah. I'm saying in our vernacular, this isn't like a bunch of cats or something. So what's a litter? Yeah, it's just a couch. We've seen those in the movies and stuff where you got somebody sitting there and it's on poles and they're on that chair and may have curtains around them or it may all be laid out and stuff. That's what is happening here. So, behold, it's the litter of Solomon. Around it are 60 mighty men, some of the mighty men of Israel, all of them wearing swords and expert in war, each with his sword at his thigh against terror by night. King Solomon made himself a carriage from the wood of Lebanon. He made its post of silver, its back of gold, its seat of purple, its interior was laid with love by the daughters of Jerusalem. Go out, O daughters of Zion, and look upon King Solomon with the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, on the day of the gladness of his heart. What a great scene that you've got here. So you've got this whole idea of the wedding parade happening and the wedding parade going along. Sorry, I had to jump across to chapter 3 real quick. I forgot to put those up. So you got this whole wedding song. That's the way the whole rest of this chapter ends. You've got this wedding song that's coming to the conclusion. They're going to get married, and we know that because when you get to the next chapter, you find out that apparently the language starts to change. As a matter of fact, let me get you to jump ahead to chapter 4 for just a second. When you get down to the end of chapter 4 and verse 16, this is how her language changes. Awake, O north wind, and come, O south wind. Blow upon my garden, let its spices flow. Let my beloved come to his garden and eat of its choicest fruits. I'm telling you, it would be hard to get language that was more explicit than that without being vulgar or something else. But as a matter of fact, chapter 5 and the end of verse 1 is what I was assigned as a topic, and I'll talk about that maybe next time or the time after. Assigned that as a topic at Florida College one year. Eat, drink, friends, be merry, get your fill of love. It's like, oh, well, that's a great topic to have to give a lesson on, especially when you got an elder's wife sitting there and an elder's daughter sitting there and your father-in-law sitting there like 3 rows in front of you. It's like, well, let me just talk about Christians and sex for the next 45 minutes. But there's some great lessons in that. But her language is going to change dramatically because that's what the rest of this whole story is. It is just they're now going to be married. Everything is going to change. It's different than it was before. You've got this whole festival. You look at that passage. How would you describe the scene or the picture?
Pomp and circumstance there.
Man, no question. How many people way back when, saw any part or all of the wedding of Prince Charles and Diana? You remember that? Remember her dress? The train that was about 3 blocks long or something? I mean, you looked at what was going on and you thought, that's not like any wedding I've ever been to. I mean, that was incredible luxury and pomp and circumstance, and all that went with that was just an incredible show, was it not? That's the picture you get here. And she, even so that she's going, go out and look at him. Go out and look at the king who's coming in with his crown that his mother gave him for his wedding day. This is an incredible scene to be able to go see. And so that's what's going to happen. You get into chapter 4, and immediately, I just want to read a couple points of that because I want to project something here just for you to think about before we get together next week. It says, this is where the description really starts coming in. We're not going to get into all this tonight, but he's already said some things about her that we think, don't know that I would use those as the terms of endearment or the choice compliments I wanted to give my wife. But then he says, behold, you are beautiful, my love. Behold, you are beautiful. Now, I'm just saying, if you stopped right there, you're in good shape with your wife. You keep going, maybe not so. Your eyes are doves behind your veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats leaping down the slopes of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of shorn ewes that have come up from the washing, all of which bear twins. That may be my favorite compliment he gives her in all the thing. He says, you know what? None of your teeth are missing. That is a remarkable thing. Yeah, I mean, it's like they all have twins and not one of them has lost its young. I just thought that's just an incredible thing. But she's going to be perceiving this. What's that? Oh, back then, all your teeth would have been a huge factor. I mean, they didn't have the same dental health we did. But you think, matter of fact, the dentist was the whole medical doctor. He did everything for you. Pull your teeth, bloodletting, all of it together. But you think about that. He's giving her these compliments. I just want to, after you got this projection of the beauty of the process, then he's going to start describing her. And this is what I want you to think about. Chapter 4, this is what we're going to be looking at next week. So there she is in all her beauty. So,
That explains the veil.
yes, love that flock of goats. And the nose, there is no description of the nose here. The nose doesn't show up till chapter 7, really. But it doesn't help, as you can see. Just an incredible, if you're trying to think of this in some literal sense, then you understand just how ridiculous it is. That's not the case. He just wants her to understand that the most beautiful things he can think of is what he's comparing her to. And that's where we'll pick up next week. Appreciate everybody's attention because it starts to keep in mind, read chapter 4 and the beginning of chapter 5 because he has a response to in chapter 5. So we may not get into chapter 5, but read chapter 4 and the beginning of chapter 5 and see how open they get about with the language about their relationship post-marriage and what do you learn from that? That's going to be the key. What do we learn from the way that they're dealing with that subject? Thank you guys. Appreciate it.